play. With that being said, let us now turn our attention to this past weekend's BKFC Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, which featured a star-studded cast of former UFC stars, including a couple of former UFC champions. Let us start with, which was the main event?
Perry.
Let's start with the main event. Platinum Mike Perry took on former UFC middleweight champion Luke Rockhold and knocked him out. Knocked out a couple of his teeth in the process. Omar, why don't you start us off? Give us your take of how this fight played out and the boxing skills that both these men put on display.
Before I jump into it, I just want to quickly shout out Chris Camozzi and Ben Rothwell. We're not going to dive into them, but they are savages. The Ben Rothwell specifically, BKFC might be the thing for him, man, because that man killed somebody in his first fight, and in this fight he showed that he can go 3 rounds and beat on a man with like half an eye open. So this is I think the thing for Ben Rothwell, and I'm glad he's finding success where he may not have found it in the UFC. But that said, both of them had great fights. Luke Rockhold and Mike Perry was, for me, exactly what I expected, with the exception of the retirement, basically, from Luke Rockhold in the middle of that fight. And I think we talked about this last week, man. Mike Perry is a fucking dog. Like, BKFC is not boxing. It's just not. There are no gloves. The approach is different. The results are different. The damage you take to your body with the strikes that you're throwing is different. And so your strikes kind of need to be economical. They need to be in the right spot because you're going to bust your hands up. It is almost a guarantee that you're going to bust your hands up and not necessarily break them, but like you've seen a lot of these hands afterwards. They're swollen. They're different colors. Like people can't close them. I mean, it gets crazy in there. Ben Rothwell even talked about how his hands, you know, he's a big dude. The dude is 285. Big dude. Hands fucked up. Completely messed up now after 3 rounds. Perry had to get stitches in his knuckle because they went through Rockhold's teeth. So that's gross. And Rockhold, man, I didn't think this was for Rockhold at all. And I don't mean this in any kind of like messed up or disrespectful way. Rockhold is a pretty boy. And I hope he doesn't take that the wrong way. Like, he's a pretty boy, man. Like Mike Perry's not going to probably be on the cover of GQ or like selling fucking cologne for Ralph Lauren or anything like that. But that's the moneymaker for Rockhold is this shit right here is the face. And this man looked like after that fight, he'd been doing meth for the last 20 years. Like his face was busted up, and not just the teeth, but the eyes. Like it's a different game, man. And Perry knows how to play it, and Perry does not care to get hit. And in that sport, that is an attribute that is going to take you really, really far.
Yeah,
fantastic performance from Perry. Really capitalized the night by getting McGregor in the ring. The man knows what he's doing, and he's so smart when it comes to the marketing. And I don't think he would have ever gotten this kind of platform in the UFC. And even in the UFC, he was a character. But this, he was bred for it. He was bred for this.
Mark, let's bring you in. Give us your take of the performance of Mike Perry and the performance of Luke Rockhold as well, and the spectacle of the whole thing.
Yeah, Mike Perry's home, man. I mean, Omar mostly said it, but like Mike Perry is bare knuckle boxing. Like he is almost who you would create to play this role. I mean, maybe you'd create someone with a bit more technique, but like he's nearly there. He's a tough out. So we'll see who can beat him over there. He's a free agent now, so I'm actually curious what will happen. I know he's been pretty happy there. They've loved him, so my guess is he's going to continue over there, but we'll see. But as for this fight, you know, Mike Perry gonna Mike Perry. He gives 0 fucks. He moves in, winging hooks with both hands at times, like nothing protecting his face. And Luke had some counters. You know, it's not as if he wasn't fighting, but he never looked like he wanted to be there to me. He just looked uncomfortable throughout. He looked like he wished Perry would get off him. And Perry was not going to oblige. And he landed a big one to the teeth of Luke. It fucked his mouth up. something awful as we've seen since in the pictures. And I guess fairly, Luke said, I don't need more of that happening to my mouth. I can't even bite this mouthpiece down right now to hold it in here, and I'm not trying to lose more teeth. So that'll be that. So it was a bit anticlimactic. I'm not totally shocked that it kind of went that type of route because, as I said, it just feels like one guy belongs there, one guy does not. And then, freaking props to Mike Perry for asking for a face-off with Conor. Conor obliges, walks in the ring. He's got a BKFC belt on his shoulder, gets on the mic, complimenting the show that they put on. I mean, these guys would have paid an ungodly sum of money for Conor to do that, and they got it for free. So a huge night for BKFC in terms of the promotion and buzz generated by that event.
Dude, the validation that Conor McGregor, who, Mike Perry was talking about this with Ariel, and he's absolutely right. He's like, Conor McGregor is one of those guys that your mom fucking knows who Conor McGregor is, right? Like, everybody knows. If you don't know combat sports, chances are you still know who Conor McGregor is at this point.
He's transcendent, man. He really is.
The amount of validation they get from somebody like Conor McGregor being a fan of the sport. Forget him physically being there, but being a fan of the sport, and even considering to go into that ring and obliging. And I have to imagine that he would know whether it was before or after that Dana White was probably not going to care for that move. He still did it anyway. You know what I mean? And he had fun with it, and he still let it be Mike Perry's night, which I thought was great. He didn't take the whole thing over. He didn't go full, raging Conor. I thought it was happy to see that. Beautiful, man. Like I said, Mike Perry there's an elegance to what Mike Perry does, and a lot of people might think that dude is dumb because of where he came from and this, that, and the other. And the man might not be able to break down chemical equations, but this dude knows his business, knows what he's doing, and he does, bro. It's fucking great to watch. I was a Mike Perry fan when he's in the UFC, but now,
me too.
This is a different level. This shit is just so much fun. I love every minute of it.
Mike Perry has
I've loved
always
Mike Perry,
been
man.
must
He's
watch.
awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
The
And
fact
he's home
that
now.
Conor McGregor was even there, the fact that he was even there, it just goes to show you how much BKFC's growing, man. They're growing.
And like Mark said, no one paid him. No one told him to go there. As the story goes, somebody was like, apparently Conor is a fan, and he was like, oh, this shit is going on in Colorado. I think he was in Vegas or California or something.
Yeah.
Your man's got a private jet on standby, so he's like, let's go. Let's hop on the plane. Went to Colorado and got in there during the main event or during the main card. It was great. I'm happy for all of them, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, Mike Perry started his pro MMA career, as quite a bright prospect. He was 7-0 and then joined the UFC. By the way, 7-0, I believe he knocked everybody out, 7-0. Joined the UFC, knocked out his first two opponents in the UFC, then loses in a decision to Alan Jouban, which, by the way, was his first fight ever to go the distance. And then from there, he would never win more than 2 fights in a row ever again, as in the UFC.
That sucks.
And he finished his MMA career, at least for now, 14-8. Then he joins BKFC in 2022. He beats Julian Lane. Then he beats Michael Venom Page, and now he beats former UFC middleweight champion Luke Rockhold. I mean, my goodness, quite a little record Platinum Mike Perry is building up over there at BKFC.
He kind of put the beats on MVP, man. He's probably tagged MVP more than MVP's been tagged his entire career in a single fight. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, Mike, MVP basically had 2 hands tied behind his back. Couldn't kick, couldn't knee, couldn't move around the same way he's, used to, especially in a small little circle like that. But I mean, that's the game. And that's why Mike Perry's a beast, and that's why he wins.
Okay, let's talk about this co-main event now between former UFC lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez taking on Chad Mendes, defeating Chad Money Mendes by a split decision. The scorecards read 47-46, 2 of them for Eddie Alvarez. Chad Mendes getting his own 47-46. Mark, start us off this time. What was your take of this back and forth bare knuckle clash between Eddie Alvarez and Chad Mendes.
I love Eddie Alvarez, man. I just love this dude. It's so good to see him back getting a win in combat sports on a big stage. There are certain guys who I just feel like were born to be fighters. And to me, Eddie Alvarez has always felt like one of those guys. It's so natural to him. And that's why he's the underground king, I guess. But he looked good here, man. It was good to see it. They both look good. Chad looked fast as shit and powerful, just like we thought he would. And I was afraid that he was just too enhanced for Eddie when picking this fight last week, and that Eddie's superior technique that I knew he had would not be able to overcome that. But I'm happy to be wrong, man. The technique shone through. Eddie adjusted more and more as the fight went on, started landing cleaner, really put it on Chad in the 5th round, started to time him, started to hurt him, and it was close the whole way for sure, but I thought Eddie just slightly edged it. I haven't rewatched it or anything, but I was glad to see him get the W. Not to mention, got the autographed Eddie gloves right here, so let's drive the value of these babies up. Give me some more wins. Give me a BKFC belt.
There you go. There you go. Okay, Omar.
Dude, this fight was fantastic, but can we quickly touch and give a shout out to motherfucking Jamie Alvarez for bringing back the Eddie! Eddie! I can't tell you how much I missed that shit until I actually started hearing it. So
that?
fucking
Is that his wife?
That's his wife, baby.
Yes.
His wife's been doing that at his fights for like a decade. And it's, for me personally, quite a bit of a staple for Eddie Alvarez fights. And I feel like this did not occur when he was in one. I don't think we had Jamie screaming when he was in one FC.
She may not have been over there.
And that is why he may not have done as well. I'm just saying.
It's a theory.
Just saying.
Theory.
This was a great fight, man. To be honest, I watched it 3 times. I love this fight. This fight is pure violence. This was, I think, by far the most technical street fight that has ever been witnessed on national TV. This was wild. And I loved every minute of it. But Eddie Alvarez, you could see Eddie Alvarez grew up fighting probably dudes bigger than him on the back streets of Philly. Chad Mendes did not. And as much of a beast as Chad Mendes is, again, just like we talked about Perry and Rockhold, I don't think Mike Perry is the more technical boxer than Luke Rockhold. I don't even think Mike Perry is the most technical fighter over Rockhold, or the more technical fighter, I should say, over Rockhold. But in BKFC, in the world that is BKFC, Mike Perry takes that fight for me all day. And in the same way, Chad Mendes might have better boxing than Eddie Alvarez. God knows we've seen him hit pads and he looks ridiculous. But in BKFC, where the reality is the toughest dude here, not the cleanest boxer, will generally come away more successful. And the grit that Eddie showed, even the knockdowns were wholly different. I mean, there was one knockdown where Chad Mendes was like, no, just give me a minute, and kind of goes down on a knee and was kind of a Chad Mendes moment. Very similar to how, if this was MMA, this would have looked exactly how it looked when Conor McGregor got him against the cage, walked him down, and put him out. It was the same kind of thing. Chad Mendes doesn't like getting hit, just like Luke Rockhold doesn't like getting hit. Eddie Alvarez will get hit, look at you, smile, and say, hit me again. Eddie Alvarez is a crazy motherfucker, just like Luke Perry. I've been doing that for like the last week. Like Mike Perry is made for this. Honestly, man, I think Eddie Alvarez is also made for this and could very well be another face of BKFC. I don't know how much longer he's got in his career, but for me, if they're paying him right, keep your ass there and box these dudes up.